welcome to Yoga for Plantar Fasciitis. I'm Morgan, I'm a registered dietitian and yoga teacher, and today we're going to dive a little bit into this thick fascia that can get kind of tight. Mostly, I find, at least for people I work with, it tends to from overuse. And so the first thing that we're going to do is have a nice comfortable seat wherever you are, and you're going to start to pull one by one each of your toes toward you. So you can sit like this. Sometimes I sit cross-legged, it just depends. But by pulling each one of your toes, it's going to kind of release some of that fascia, and then you can go back through the other way. I would definitely do this a couple times a day. You know, usually with plantar fasciitis, it's worse right away in the morning or when movement stops. So like, let's say, for example, a lot of runners can get it from overuse, and maybe when you're running, it's just fine, but then you go to stop and it hurts. And you can kind of just push the toes away from you. It's kind of just be a little bit of a counter stretch. Not super specific for plantar fasciitis, but does help just to create that balance, since we probably have some overuse and underdevelopment there. And then switching sides. So depending on sort of the severity of what you got going on, this may or may not, you know, be as sensitive of an area, but it is something good to do every day. And even if, you know, sometimes I actually like to dig my fingers and wedge them in between each of my toes, and then just kind of move my foot around, pulling it, so I'm stretching, you know, opening up the bottom of that foot, that arch. The plantar fascia connects your heel to the front part of your foot. So it's this really thick band of connective tissue, and it helps to kind of add a lot of support really when you're weight bearing. So if you're on your feet a lot, or if you walk a lot, run a lot, that's usually where we see some of these imbalances start to come up. And I should also say that for some people, if you have a flare-up, putting any kind of weight on it is really painful. And so this next exercise that we're going to do, go slowly. So you can use a therapy ball, you can use a water bottle, you can use anything that's going to be round, and you're literally from the seated position just going to start to rock back and forth. The reason I say seated is because if you're standing, that's just going to put a lot of weight, and if you have a really tender, you know, plantar fascia from an injury and from that overuse, it's going to be not so great. So you can even get into the heel a bit just to kind of get that balance, but the majority of the rolling is going to be spent on the arch, or right where that band of connective tissue is. And so with this too, you can roll up and down. If you have two balls, you can do it at the same time. You can also, again, like I said, use a water bottle, which can be really nice if you don't have therapy balls. You can use lacrosse balls too. I just would be really cautious with those, just because they're really hard, and if you have a current injury going on, that can be definitely more problematic. So go slow, and if you, over time, so you definitely want to give your foot at least a couple weeks rest once you start to notice an injury, but once you can start to do some more of these types of stretches and exercises, then maybe you can start to add more weight, right, like this, and then maybe you do come to stand eventually. But again, go slow. And in those 2 weeks, you may notice that you can get some relief from icing it, and also, you know, just sort of resting off of whatever activity you're doing. So again, I tend to see runners, but if it's your job, you know, that might be a little bit more tricky to sort of take that time off your feet, but definitely do what you need to do to get better, because this kind of stuff doesn't go away. I should say that. When we think it's going to go away, it doesn't go away unless you work through it. So definitely work through it. Alrighty, so we did that, and then the next thing that we're going to do, so you can set the chair aside. So you can either use a chair or use a wall, and just 1 foot at a time with, I should pull this up so you can see it, with your ankle and knee bent, you start to kind of stretch back. Now, depending again on how tight everything is, you may just need to go back a little bit, or if you have more access, you may be able to stretch out a little bit more and put more weight into that heel. and then even deepen that angle a bit. That's going to be variable for each person. So we're going to just kind of do that. Now you don't want to hold too long in one position, so I like to kind of rock forward, rock back. And that is, again, if you're working with an acute injury, it's just more of a touch and go, so you're not overstretching it, because fascia doesn't really stretch like a muscle does. So muscle has a lot of blood flow, the fascia does not. So we're gonna set that aside. And then from here, we're just gonna do, again, same sort of situation. So if the standing doesn't work, you can always do it from kneeling position, stretching back one leg at a time. And then if you want something that's gonna be a little bit more active, you can always find a lunge. So like this, a low lunge, you're gonna get a little bit of opening in your quad and hip flexor, but push out through that back foot to open that up. And again, you can always intensify it a bit coming into a full lunge, and that's gonna also get into the plantar fascia. So we'll just switch sides. But like I said, starting out, you might want something that's just a little bit more passive. So do what you need to do. And then you can always, down dog is another great one. So a down dog, point your index finger straight ahead, grip the floor with the fingertips, spread your fingers wide, lift your hips up, and then push them back. And then from here, keep your knees bent a lot, and then maybe you just start to straighten and tap out your feet. One by one by one. So, if you want to skip the active, no problemo. From there, just come onto your back and use a strap or a towel. And from here, put the strap on the ball of your foot, and then you're going to just pull your toes towards you. So that's a similar action of what we did in the chair. It's just going to be with the whole foot. You can also do this in a chair, but honestly, I just kind of like the way it feels when I'm on my back. It gives my back a lot of release, which can be really, really nice and relaxing. So pull the toes towards you. You can even kind of push up to give that counterbalance. But again, acknowledge and notice what you feel. Breathe into that. Hold for about 8 breaths on each side. And again, because these are just kind of like, tap and go little movement situations, come back to them a couple times a day. I would say, morning and then in the evening can be very, very helpful. Depending on the severity of your injury, how much you can do, or how often that your provider suggests might be different, but these are some good options. And especially if you're just kind of feeling little twinges, start doing this stuff right away to prevent it from getting worse, because like I said, it definitely tends to get worse before it gets better, and it doesn't usually go away on its own. You usually have to kind of work into some of that connective tissue. So there you have it. Those are some key exercises to work into your plantar fascia. And so basically, if you want to prevent injuries there, or even if you're working through an injury, those will all be great things to do a couple times a day. I hope you found this helpful, and check out the next video. Until next time, keep it kind.